remembered the day he arrived at the station. His scales were bright green then, unmarked by battle, and his 4 arms had never held a weapon outside of training. He was young, he was proud, and he believed everything the Dominion had taught him about humans. They were weak creatures, his teachers said. They lived short lives. They let emotions control them. They broke easily and healed slowly. The Dominion allowed them into the Galactic Alliance only because they bred fast and died faster, making them useful as cannon fodder in the endless wars against the Hollowed. Believed all of this when he stepped off the transport ship and saw humans for the first time. They were small. Most of them barely reached his chest. They had only 2 arms, soft skin, and flat teeth meant for eating plants. They smiled too much and made strange noises with their mouths that his translator called laughter. Looked at them and felt nothing but pity. How sad, he thought, to be born so weak. His first mission came 3 days later, a routine patrol on the planet below. The mining colony had reported strange signals near the eastern mountains, and command wanted eyes on the ground. Was assigned to a mixed squad, 4 warriors and 4 humans. The human leader was a woman named Park. She was old by human standards, within her black hair and lines on her face. But she moved like someone who had seen 1,000 battles, and when she spoke, even the other humans went quiet. "Stay close, stay alert," she told the squad before they boarded the Hollowed don't give warnings. Almost laughed. He knew about the Hollowed, parasitic creatures that consumed minds and turned bodies into puppets. Dangerous, yes, but nothing a proper warrior could not handle. He had trained for this his entire life. The patrol started normally. They walked through rocky canyons under a purple sky. The human called walked beside most of the time. He was a medic, quiet and serious, with calm eyes that seemed to look through everything. He carried a rifle on his back and a medical bag at his side. "First deployment?" asked. Scales shifted to a darker shade. Embarrassment. "Yes." "You'll do fine," the human said. "Just remember to breathe." Wanted to say that warriors did not need advice from soft creatures. But before he could speak, everything changed. The first Hollowed came from the rocks above. It dropped onto one of the warriors and tore out his throat before anyone could react. More followed. 10, 20. They poured from cracks in the canyon walls like water from a broken dam. Had trained for this. He had practiced formations and combat moves for years, but training was nothing like reality. The sounds were wrong. The smell was wrong. Everything was too fast, too loud, too real. He fired his weapon until it overheated. He slashed with his combat blade until his arms burned. But the Hollowed kept coming. His fellow warriors fell one by one, their screams cut short as parasites took their bodies. And then was alone. He ran. He was not proud of it, but he ran. Through the canyon, over rocks, into a narrow passage that led nowhere, a dead end. He turned around and saw 3 Hollowed blocking the exit. "This is how I die," thought. He raised his blade, but his arms were shaking. His scales had turned pale, the color of fear. The Hollowed moved closer. Could see the human bodies they wore like suits, rotting and broken. He could smell the death on them. He could hear the wet clicking sound they made when they communicated. Then something happened that would never forget. A shadow dropped from above, landed between and the Hollowed. His rifle was gone. His armor was cracked and covered in black blood. In his hands was only a combat knife, no longer than smallest finger. The first Hollowed lunged, stepped to the side, grabbed its arm, and drove the knife through its eye socket. The creature fell. He pulled the knife out before the body hit the ground. The second Hollowed attacked from the left, ducked under its claws, sliced the tendons in its leg, and when it fell, he stabbed it through the back of the skull. The third Hollowed was smarter. It circled, waiting for an opening. Did not wait. He threw the knife. It spun through the air and buried itself in the creature's throat. The Hollowed stumbled and was already moving. He pulled the knife free and finished the job with one clean strike. 3 hollowed, 3 kills, less than 10 seconds. Stood frozen against the wall. His legs would not move. His voice would not work. He stared at the human standing among the bodies, breathing hard but steady. There was blood on his face. Some of it was his own. But his eyes were what broke. They were calm, focused. There was no fear in them, no anger, no excitement. Had just killed 3 monsters that should have ended them both, and he looked like he had done nothing more interesting than morning exercises. "Can you walk?" asked. Managed to nod. "Then let's go. The captain is holding a position 200 meters north." He turned and started walking, not even checking if was following. That night, after the survivors returned to the station, lay in his sleeping chamber and stared at the ceiling. His body was tired, but his mind would not rest. He kept seeing those calm eyes. He kept feeling that cold terror in his chest. He had faced the hollowed and felt fear. That was normal. That was expected. But the terror that touched him deepest was not from the enemy. It was from the human who saved him. Finally understood something his teachers never told him. Humans were not weak. They were not soft. They were something far more dangerous. They were monsters who had learned to look like gentle creatures. 3 weeks passed after the ambush. His body healed quickly. His scales returned to their normal green. The cuts and bruises faded until they were only memories, but something inside him remained broken. He started avoiding the humans. It was not a choice he made with thought. His body simply moved away from them whenever they came close. In the meal hall, he sat at the far end. In the corridors, he took longer paths to avoid their quarters. During briefings, he stood near the door, ready to leave the moment they ended. The other warriors noticed nothing. They thought was simply keeping proper distance from the lesser species, but knew the truth. He was not keeping distance. He was hiding. Every time he saw, he remembered those calm eyes among the blood and bodies. Every time he heard Sergeant Lee laugh in the corridors, he thought about how that same mouth had screamed battle cries while she killed Hollowed with her bare hands when her gun ran empty. Every time Captain Park walked past him, he felt his scales try to change too. He was afraid of them, and he did not understand why. One evening was alone in the observation deck, watching the planet spin slowly below. The mining colony lights looked like tiny stars scattered across the dark surface. It was peaceful, quiet, safe. Then the door opened, and Park walked in. His body went stiff. He turned to leave, but she was faster. She stood between him and the door, arms crossed, eyes sharp. "We need to talk," she said. "I have duties to attend," replied. His voice came out higher than normal. "Your duties can wait." Park did not move. "I've been watching you. You flinch when my people come near. You leave rooms when we enter. You won't even look in the eyes, and he saved your life." Said nothing. His scales shifted to pale yellow, shame. "Tell me why," Park said. It was not a request. For a long moment considered lying. He could make excuses. He could talk about cultural differences or personal preferences, but something in Park's eyes made lying feel impossible. She would know. She would see through him the way she saw through everything. So told the truth. "Your kind frightens me," he said quietly. "More than the hollowed, more than anything I have ever faced." Park did not react the way expected. She did not get angry. She did not laugh at him. Instead, she let out a long breath and walked to the window. She stood beside, looking down at the planet, and for a while she said nothing. "Good," she finally said. "You're paying attention." Scales flickered with confusion. "I do not understand." "Humans scare ourselves too," Park said. Her voice was softer now, tired. "Do you know our history? Do you know what we did before we reached the stars? I know you are a young species, barely 300 years in space. That's the nice part of the story." Park turned to face him. "Before we found other life in the galaxy, we spent thousands of years killing each other. Wars over land, wars over ideas, wars over nothing at all. We built weapons that could burn entire cities in seconds. We came close to ending ourselves more times than I can count. Listened in silence. This was not in any of the Dominion's teachings. We're not fearless, Park continued. We're terrified, all the time. We're scared of dying, scared of losing the people we love, scared of the darkness between the stars. But we learned something important a long time ago. What? Asked. Fear doesn't go away, you don't beat it, you don't make it disappear. Park's eyes were steady. You just learn to move anyway. You learn to act while you're afraid. That's all courage is, being scared and doing the thing anyway. Thought about in that canyon, the calm in his eyes. He was afraid, the medic. Park smiled, but it was a sad smile. He's terrified every single time. He told me once that he sees the faces of everyone he couldn't save whenever he closes his eyes. But he keeps fighting. He keeps saving people, because the fear of doing nothing is worse than the fear of dying. A sound came from the station speakers, an alarm, not the battle alarm but something else, a distress signal. Park touched her communicator. A voice came through, broken and panicked. The mining colony below was under attack. Hollowed had broken through the eastern defenses. Civilians were trapped in the residential sector. All combat units to, the station commander ordered. This is not a drill. Park was already moving toward the door. She stopped and looked back at. You're on the rescue team, she said. My squad, we leave in 10 minutes. Wanted to refuse. He wanted to stay on the station where it was safe, but he remembered what she said. Courage was being scared and doing the thing anyway. He followed her. Sat across from Sergeant Lee. She was checking her heavy weapon, a massive gun that most warriors could not lift, but she held it like it weighed nothing. She noticed watching and grinned at him. First real rescue mission, she asked. Yes. Nervous. Very. Lee laughed. It was a warm sound, strange coming from someone who had seen tear enemies apart. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. Here, she said, pressing a button. Music came from the device. Soft, slow, beautiful. A woman's voice singing words, translator turned into poetry about mountains and rivers and home. What is this? Asked. Old songs. My grandmother used to sing them to me when I was small and scared. Lee's eyes went distant. I play them before every battle. Reminds me what I'm fighting for. Did not understand. These creatures could kill without mercy. They could face death without blinking. And yet they created beauty like this. They carried gentle memories into war. How could the same species hold both things inside them? The shook as it entered the atmosphere. Below them, the colony was burning, and somewhere in that fire heard something that made his blood freeze. A child was screaming. The colony was worse than imagined. Buildings burned on both sides of the streets. Bodies lay where they had fallen. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of death. And everywhere, the sounds of battle mixed with the sounds of screaming. Park led the squad through the chaos with steady commands. She never raised her voice. She never showed fear. She simply pointed and spoke, and everyone moved. Take point. Lee, watch our back. Stay in the middle and cover the flanks. They moved through the burning streets like water through rocks. Smooth, fast, deadly. Hollowed came at them from doorways and rooftops, and each time the squad cut them down without stopping. Fought alongside them now. His fear was still there, cold in his chest, but he kept moving. He kept firing. He kept doing what Park commanded, and slowly something strange happened. He stopped thinking of the humans as monsters. They were warriors like him, maybe better than him. The residential sector was 3 blocks ahead when they found the first survivors. A group of miners had barricaded themselves inside a storage building. When broke down the door, they screamed and raised their tools as weapons. Easy, said, holding up his hands. We're here to help. Is anyone hurt? A woman stepped forward. Her face was covered in ash and tears. "My daughter," she whispered. "She was at the school. Please, please, you have to find her." Looked at Park. Something passed between them. A question and an answer spoken without words. "The school is 2 blocks east," Park said. "We'll check it on our way to the main shelter. Stay here. More rescue teams are coming." They kept moving. The school was a small building with bright colors painted on its walls. Those colors were now black with smoke. The front door had been torn from its frame. Inside, the lights were dead, and the only sound was the wind moving through broken windows. "Spread out," Park ordered. "Check every room." Move down a hallway lined with small chairs and drawings hung on walls. The drawings showed families and houses and smiling suns. Children had made these, human children, and now those same children might be dead or worse. He found the first body in a classroom. A teacher. She had died protecting her students, her arms still wrapped around 2 small forms. The hollowed had not been gentle. Stomach turned. He had seen death before, but this was different. This was not a battlefield. This was a place of learning, a place of innocence. He heard movement behind him, and spun with his weapon raised. A small face looked up at him from inside a storage cabinet. A human child. A girl. She was maybe 7 years old, with black hair and wide eyes full of terror. Lowered his weapon slowly. "It is safe," he said, trying to make his voice soft. "I am here to help." The girl did not move. She stared at his scales, his 4 arms, his alien face. She had probably never seen it before. He must have looked like another monster to her. Did not know what to do. He was trained for battle, not for this. He stood frozen, unsure how to reach a creature so small and so afraid. Then the girl did something unexpected. She crawled out of the cabinet and walked toward him. She reached up with one small hand and touched his scales. Her fingers were warm against his cold skin. "Are you going to save us?" she asked. Looked into her eyes. They were brown and wet with tears. She was terrified. She had just seen things no child should see. And yet she was choosing to trust him. A stranger, an alien, a monster. "Yes," said. The word came out before he could think. "I am going to save you." Her name was. She was the only survivor from her classroom. The squad gathered what survivors they could find. 47 people in total, 35 adults and 12 children. They were scared and hurt and exhausted. Some of them could barely walk, but they were alive. Park made a decision quickly. "The main shelter is compromised. We'll use the maintenance tunnels to reach the eastern evacuation point." "What about the hollowed?" Lee asked. "They're between us and the tunnels." "We hold them off." Park looked at her squad. "You're wounded, how bad?" Glanced at his side. His armor was cracked and dark with blood. "I can fight." "That's not what I asked." "I can fight," he repeated. His voice left no room for argument. Park nodded. "You'll escort the civilians through the tunnels. Keep them safe until extraction arrives." Scales flashed with surprise. "That is not a warrior's duty." "No," Park agreed. "It's more important than a warrior's duty. Those people are counting on you. Those children are counting on you. Nothing matters more than getting them out alive." She was right, knew she was right, but something in him resisted. He had been taught that glory came from battle, that honor came from killing enemies. Protecting civilians was work for lesser soldiers. Then he felt a small hand slip into his. Stood beside him, holding his clawed fingers with complete trust. She did not care about glory or honor. She just wanted to live. She just wanted someone to protect her. Looked down at her face and understood something important. This was what humans fought for. Not glory, not honor, not power. They fought for the small hand holding theirs. They fought for the scared eyes looking up with trust. They fought so children could grow up and make more drawings of smiling suns. "I will protect them," said. He led the civilians into the tunnels while the squad took positions at the entrance. The last thing he saw before the darkness swallowed them was kneeling behind a broken wall, rifle ready, blood dripping from his side. "Why do you stay?" called back to him. Smiled. It was a tired, gentle smile. "They're scared," he said. "Someone has to stay." The battle sound started before reached the first turn in the tunnel. Gunfire, explosions, screaming. He wanted to go back, he wanted to help, but his hand tightened around his fingers and he remembered his promise. He kept walking, he kept the civilians moving, he kept close. And somewhere behind him, 3 humans held the line against an army. When finally emerged at the evacuation point, the sky was with morning light. The civilians were loaded onto transport ships, was taken by medics to be checked for injuries. She waved at as they carried her away. He waved back with one of his 4 arms. Then he turned and ran back toward the colony. He found the squad at the entrance to the tunnels. The ground around them was covered with hollowed bodies, more than could count. Lee was down, unconscious, her armor shattered, was dragging her with one arm. His other arm hung useless at his side. And Park stood alone among the corpses. Her armor was broken in a dozen places. Her face was covered in blood. She was breathing hard and her hands were shaking. But she was smiling. "Did they make it?" she asked when she saw. "Yes," said all 47, the children too. Park nodded once. Then her legs gave out and caught her before she hit the ground. The medical bay was quiet except for the soft sounds of machines. Lights blinked green and blue. Monitors showed heartbeats and blood pressure and things did not understand. 3 beds sat in a row near the window, and in those beds lay the humans who had changed everything. Lee was the worst. The doctors said she had taken wounds that should have killed her. A broken spine, crushed organs, blood loss that would have ended any warrior. But she was still breathing, still fighting. Even unconscious, she refused to give up. Sat in the bed beside her. His left arm was gone now, cut off above the elbow. A metal replacement was being built for him in the station's workshop. The doctors told him to rest. He refused. He spent every hour reading medical files and planning for the next mission. Park was awake. She lay in the 3rd bed with bandages covering half her body. 17 new scars, the doctors said. 17 times she should have died but didn't. Visited every day. He did not know why. No one asked him to come. No one expected it. But every morning he found himself walking to the medical bay. He would sit in the corner and watch over them. Sometimes he brought food. Sometimes he brought reports from the station. Most times he just sat in silence. The other warriors noticed. "You waste time with the soft ones," a warrior named Thresh said to him one evening. "They are beneath us. Let them heal or die on their own." Scales darkened to red. Anger. Those soft ones killed more hollowed in one night than you have killed in your entire life. They got lucky. I watched them hold a tunnel entrance against 50 enemies so strangers could escape. Stood up from his seat. He was taller than Thresh, bigger, and he was no longer afraid. I watched them bleed and break and refuse to fall. What have you ever held the line for, Thresh? What have you ever sacrificed? Thresh had no answer. He walked away without another word. Returned to the medical bay. Park was watching him when he entered. Her eyes were tired but sharp. "I heard you out there," she said, "defending us." Sat in his usual corner. I spoke the truth. Still, Park smiled slightly. "Thank you." They sat together in comfortable silence. Through the window, stars moved slowly past. The station was orbiting to its night cycle. The lights in the medical bay dimmed automatically. "Can I ask you something?" said finally. "Of course." "Why do you fight the way you do? Why do you risk so much for people you don't know?" Park was quiet for a long moment. She looked out at the stars, and her face became soft with memory. "I have a daughter," she said, "back on Earth. Her name is Park. She's 14 now. I haven't seen her in 2 years." Listened. Every time I save a child, I think of her. Park's voice was barely above a whisper. Every scared face I protect is someone else's reason for living. If I can keep them safe, maybe somewhere out there, someone is keeping my daughter safe too. That is, search for the right word. That is a beautiful reason. It's the only reason that matters. Park turned to look at him. We all fight for something, glory fades, honor is forgotten, but the people we love, the lives we save, those are real, those last. A sound came from the bed beside her, was trying to stand up. His body swayed, still weak from blood loss and surgery. "What are you doing?" Park demanded. "Going back to duty." Reach for his uniform. "The station needs medics. I can work with one arm." "You need rest," the doctor said. "Rest is for after." His voice was calm but firm. "There's still work to do." He dressed slowly, every movement careful and deliberate. When he was done, he walked toward the door, blocked his path. "You will collapse before you reach the corridor," said. Probably looked up at him. "Move anyway." Did not move. "I will help you." Blinked, surprise crossed his face for just a moment. Then he nodded. They walked together through the station, let lean on him when his legs got weak. They moved slowly, stopping often, but they kept moving. "Why did you come back?" asked as they passed the observation deck. "What do you mean?" "At the colony, after you got the civilians out, you came back for us, you didn't have to." Thought about the question. He thought about the little girl holding his hand. He thought about Park smiling among the bodies. He thought about everything he had learned in the past weeks. "Because I finally understood," he said. "Understood what?" "That you are not terrifying because you are violent." Scales shifted to deep blue. "Respect. You are terrifying because you care so much that you become violent. You love so deeply that you will burn the galaxy to protect what you love. That is not weakness. That is the greatest strength I have ever seen." Was quiet for a long time, then he smiled. "You're learning," he said. A sound came from a room nearby. Soft laughter. Looked through the doorway and saw Lee sitting up in a mobile bed. A nurse had brought her here at her request. She was weak and pale, but her eyes were bright. "Did everyone make it out?" she asked when she saw. Those were her first words after waking up, not asking about herself, not asking about her wounds, asking about the people she had almost died protecting. Felt something break inside him, something old and wrong. The last of his fear melted away, replaced by something warm and new. "Yes," he said, "everyone made it out because of you." Lee smiled. It was the most beautiful thing had ever seen. Later that day, intelligence reports arrived at the station. The Hollowed were gathering in large numbers, thousands of them. They were preparing for a major assault. The station itself was the target. The commander called an emergency meeting. Every warrior on the station attended. The room was full of fear. Everyone knew what was coming. Everyone knew the odds. When the meeting ended, walked to the commander's office. "I request reassignment," he said. The commander looked up from her desk. "To where?" "The human squad, Captain Park's unit. I want to fight beside them." "Why?" The commander's eyes were cold. "They are not our kind." "No," agreed, "they are better." The commander was silent for a long time. Then she signed the transfer papers. "You are a strange one," she said. "I hope you know what you're doing." Took the papers and walked out. He knew exactly what he was doing. The Hollowed came with the darkness. They poured from the void like a living wave. Thousands of bodies twisted by parasites. Thousands of mouths screaming in voices that were no longer their own. Their ships crashed into the station's shields like fists against glass, cracking the defenses piece by piece. Stood at his post beside the human squad. His scales were dark red, battle color. His forearms held two weapons and his heart beat fast in his chest, but he was not afraid, not anymore. Park stood at the front, giving commands through her communicator. Her wounds were not fully healed, but she refused to stay behind. Was on her left, his new metal arm gleaming under the emergency lights. Lee was on her right, her heavy weapon resting on her shoulder like it weighed nothing. "They're breaking through Sector 7, a voice shouted from the speakers. "Sector 7 is lost," Park replied calmly. "All units fall back to Sector 5. We hold there." The station shook as another hollowed ship hit the shields. Lights flickered. Alarms screamed. Somewhere in the distance heard the sound of metal tearing. They were losing. The squad moved through the corridors in tight formation. Hollowed poured through breaches in the walls. Each time the squad cut them down and kept moving. Each time they left more bodies behind them. Each time they got a little slower, a little more tired. Fought harder than he had ever fought in his life. His blades sang through the air. His weapons never stopped firing. He killed and killed and killed, and still more enemies came. "Sector 5 is gone," the speakers announced. "All units fall back to the command center." The command center was the heart of the station. If that fell, everything fell. They reached the command center's main corridor just as the largest wave hit. Hollowed flooded through every entrance. The defenders formed a line across the corridor, humans and fighting side by side. Found himself next to. They fought back to back, covering each other's blind spots. At some point took a wound to his side. He barely noticed. Pressed a bandage to it without stopping his fire. "You should retreat," gasped. "Get to safety." "No such thing," replied. He fired 3 more shots, 3 more hollowed fell. "We all make it out or none of us do." A massive hollowed broke through the line. It was larger than the others, twisted into something that barely looked alive anymore. It headed straight for a group of wounded defenders who could not move. Saw it happening. He was too far away to stop it. But Lee was not. She threw herself in front of the creature. Her heavy weapon was empty. She had no more ammunition, so she swung the weapon itself like a club, slamming it into the hollowed's head with all her strength. The creature stumbled. Lee hit it again and again and again. When it finally fell, she collapsed beside it. Park screamed. Ran to her. He checked her pulse, her breathing, her wounds. His face was tight with fear. "She's alive," he said. "Barely. I need to get her to medical." "Go," Park ordered. "Cover him." And carried Lee toward the medical station. The corridors were chaos. Hollowed attacked from every direction. Arms burned from swinging his blades. His lungs burned from breathing smoke. But they kept moving. They did not stop. They did not fall. Behind them, Park did something impossible. She led a counterattack. With fewer than 20 soldiers, she pushed forward into the hollowed mass. She moved like something from legends, her blade cutting paths through enemies, her voice rallying every defender who could still stand. "Find the hive node," she shouted. "Cut off the head." The hive node was how the hollowed coordinated. Destroy it and the swarm would lose its unity. It was suicide to try, but Park tried anyway. Watched from the medical station doorway as she fought her way through the horde. He watched as she took wound after wound. He watched as she refused to fall. And then she found it. The hive node was a pulsing mass of flesh and metal, hidden behind the largest hollowed had ever seen. It towered over Park. It should have killed her with one blow. But Park was human. She dodged its attack, rolled under its arms, and drove her blade into the hive node's center. The thing screamed. The entire hollowed swarm screamed with it, and then they stopped. Every hollowed on the station froze at once. Their connection was broken. Their coordination was gone. They became nothing more than mindless creatures, easy to kill, easy to push back. The defenders surged forward. The remaining hollowed were destroyed in minutes. When the last enemy fell, silence filled the station. Walked through the bodies to find Park. She was sitting against a wall, her back to the hive node's corpse. Her armor was shattered. Her face was covered in blood. She was barely breathing. But she was alive. "Did we win?" she asked when she saw. "Yes," said, "we won." Park smiled. It was the same smile she wore in the colony, among the bodies of her enemies. "Good," she whispered, "that's good." The days after the battle were strange, quiet. The station was damaged but standing. Repairs began, the wounded were treated, the dead were honored. Received a commendation from both the Dominion and the Human Coalition. They called him a hero. They gave him medals and titles and promised him glory. He did not care about any of it. What mattered was the meal. The human squad invited him to eat with them in their quarters. It was a simple thing, rice and vegetables and something called kimchi. They sat around a small table and passed dishes back and forth. Lee was there, her wounds wrapped in bandages, her smile as bright as ever. Was there, his metal arm clicking softly as he poured drinks. Park was there, tired but peaceful, eating slowly. And was there, among them, part of them. "Thank you," he said suddenly. The humans looked at him. "For what?" Park asked. "For showing me what matters." Scales shifted through every color he knew. "For teaching me why to fight." Park reached across the table and touched his arm. Her hand was warm. "You taught yourself," she said. "We just gave you the chance to see." That night wrote a report to the High Command. It was long and detailed and probably broke 100 rules. But he did not care. It ended with these words: "I came to this station believing humans were beneath us. Fragile, emotional, weak. I was wrong. Terror touched me first when I saw what they could do in battle. But what changed me forever was understanding why they fight. They do not fight because they are strong. They fight because they are afraid. Afraid of losing each other. Afraid of a universe without kindness. Afraid of letting the darkness win. And that fear makes them braver than any species I have ever known. If humanity asks us to stand beside them, we should consider it an honor. Because when the universe ends, I believe the last light burning will be human." He sent the report. Then he went back to the human quarters. There was still kimchi left, and Lee had promised to teach him a song. He was choosing what to fight for. "Good," she whispered, "that's good." She passed out in his arms, still smiling, and was now very, very afraid.